Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to One Stop Business Workshop. My name is Sarah Duda and I'm the Content Accessibility Lead at CBC, and I will be your moderator today. Before we begin, we wish to acknowledge those Indigenous nations on whose lands we live and work. Since land acknowledgements are specific to each region, and today we are gathering virtually from all across the country, we urge you to visit the Native Land digital website to identify the First Nations territories on which you are located. I am very excited to welcome Greg David, our presenter today, who will give an introduction on integrated described video, also known as IDV, which is a technique for making content accessible to blind and partially sighted audiences. Greg is the communications specialist at Accessible Media Inc., also known as AMI, a not-for-profit media company that plays a critical role in delivering accessible content to Canadians who are blind or partially sighted and who rely on broadcasters like AMI and CBC to connect them with the stories that people are talking about every day. For today's session, it will be 30 minutes, and we'll begin by hearing from Greg, and then we'll have a Q&A afterwards. During the Q&A, I'll ask Greg the questions you provided when you signed up for the session. You can also email me anytime during the session with your questions using the email address that was provided to you through Eventbrite. And if you miss anything, don't worry, a video of this session and some additional resources will be available afterwards. And with that, I will turn things over to Greg.
Thanks so much, Sarah, for that introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. As Sarah said, my name is Greg David, and I'm the communications specialist at AMI, Accessible Media Inc. We're rebranding, so I'm so used to saying AMI now because it's been drilled into my head, but it's Accessible Media Inc. I just celebrated my second anniversary with AMI last month, and prior to that, I worked for TV Guide Canada as a writer, editor, and television critic. And I'm thrilled to be with you today to introduce you all to integrated described video. Let's take a look at the first slide, please. Thank you. So the presentation overview, the first slide is going to be about AMI. I'll give you a little bit more detail about who we are as a company. Then I'll get into what IDV, or integrated described video, is and how it differs from described video. In the third slide, we'll get into some core concepts for you to keep in mind. And then the last slide before the end will just be some next steps. So first of all, I'll give you a little bit of information about Accessible Media Inc., or AMI. We, as Sarah said, we're a not-for-profit media company that entertains, informs, and empowers Canadians who are blind or partially sighted. We operate 3 broadcast services: AMI TV and AMI Audio in English, and AMI Tele in French. AMI's vision is to establish and support a voice for Canadians with disabilities. We represent their interests, concerns, and values through accessible media, reflection, and portrayal. AMI is a broadcaster and content creator just like CBC, just like CTV Global and City TV, but our core audience, as I said, is the blind and partially sighted community in Canada. AMI received their CRTC license on the basis of that. And we've also, in the last year or so, I guess last couple of years, so just before I started with the company, started to expand some of our programming to include all members of the disability community. And the good news is, if you have basic cable, you already have AMI in your lineup. And if you want to get more information about AMI, where we are on your cable lineup, you can go to ami.ca. Next slide, please. So what is described video, or DV? And I'm just going to talk a little bit about that before I get into IDV. So the definition of described video is a narration of a program's key visual elements added during gaps in dialogue. That enables people to form a mental picture of what is happening in the program. Relevant visuals are narrated. This enables the viewer to form a picture of the program in their mind's eye. And the description in the form of narration is added during gaps in dialogue, like I mentioned in the definition. And described video is always added after a program is packaged. So an example of a CBC program that we receive already packaged would be Murdoch Mysteries. So the dialogue for Murdoch Mysteries is there, the music is all there, but described video is added afterwards where someone is sitting in a studio and describing pertinent things. So if Murdoch picks something up off of a table, if he and Julia kiss, that's described as well, things that are important to the storytelling. So that said, what does integrated described video or IDV? So the definition of IDV is a method of creating description whereby the key visual elements are incorporated into the original production such that traditional DV is not required. So that means that from the very beginning, in the beginning of the production process, integrated described video begins. So rather than being added at the end, it's there from the very beginning. Description of relevant visuals are integrated into the production and considered from planning to final delivery. Planning in IDV in advance is key, and I want to stress that word, planning. AMI produces several shows that use integrated described video, and you can go back to, you can go to ami.ca to get an idea of several of them. They're under the shows tab. And one of them is called Eyes for the Job. And it stars a blind handyman named Chris Judge, who is joined by his sighted co-host, Alex Hayter. Now, each half-hour episode features the two of them building things like shelving, tables, bird feeders, dog houses, benches. They build a Murphy bed and do a little bit of light renovation in rooms of the house. Now, Chris uses all the power tools that Alex does, and he's figured out little hacks for himself so that he doesn't lose any fingers along the way. And he always, that's one of the very first questions that he is asked is if he, being a blind handyman, has he ever lost any fingers? No, he hasn't. So as each episode unfolds, integrated described video is performed by Chris or Alex. They describe what they're doing as they do it while filming. So Chris might say, I'm picking up my drill and I'm lining up the bit with the mark that I've made with a scratch awl into the wood. I'm going to drill the hole, then I'll insert a hook into the hole so that we can hang the picture frame. So Chris serves as the natural narration of what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. Now he's describing it to the audience that's tuning in so that they can get that mind-eye going. It's seamless. I often compare IDV to much of what you might see in lifestyle programming, where a host using a voiceover explains what they're doing or what they're going to do next. So IDV is like that, if you want to think about it that way, but it's much more immersive. When creating IDV, audio is enhanced for the listener's experience and understanding. So any ambiguous audio is omitted, and in some cases, the soundtrack itself may have the volume lowered so that the narration, the integrated described video description, is heard more clearly. Like DV or described video, IDV enables people to form a picture of the program in their mind's eye. So the end result is a very natural and organic version of description. You might actually not even notice that it's there. It's certainly not as apparent as the added voice in a DV track, which can be jarring just because it's a different voice that's coming into the show. If it's the host of a show like Eyes for the Job, it's already being done in their voice. So it's all part of the packaging. Next slide, please. So AMI's core audience is the reason that integrated described video came to be at AMI, and we pioneered it. When AMI started to create their own content, we realized that rather than adding described video to that content, we could create highly descriptive content specifically for our core audience. And the benefit of that is that there's only one version of the program. The person needing the accessible version doesn't have to go looking for it. We currently produce a half dozen in-house productions in IDV, and we work with external production companies for productions with them. And part of the learning process is that we offer training with those external production companies so that they learn what they should be looking for when they're creating IDV from the very beginning. One of those external productions is called Employable Me. We've got 4 seasons of that show done now with AMI, and we also partnered with TVO for that program. And it's won 3 consecutive awards at the Banff World Media Festival. We're really proud of that, and part of the reason why I think that we've done so well at the Banff Awards is the fact that the IDV is so prevalent and part of the storytelling. And just a heads up that after this presentation is over, there are going to be 2 YouTube video links that'll be provided, and they show the differences between described video and integrated described video. You go a little bit more in depth than what I'm going to today. In one film that's been, one scene, excuse me, that's been filmed at a pottery studio. They're each about 3 minutes long, and one of them, it's the same scene at a pottery studio, but one of them is showing just DV, and then the other one with the IDV, the integrated described video. So let's talk a little bit about the IDV core concepts. On-screen text. If you're blind or partially sighted, this is an issue because you're not going to see those things. Things that sighted viewers take for granted on a show title would be a show title. Lower thirds are huge, like names and titles on screen, credits before the show's beginning or as it's beginning, and then credits afterwards. Calls to action, like a website address, or any on-screen text that might be used in a promo. So the solution for that was to ensure that those things are voiced either by a narrator or a show host, like I was talking about with Chris Judge. When it comes to the lower thirds, participants on a show are asked to introduce themselves fully for the viewer. So your name, your full name, what your title is, maybe what company you work for, that type of thing is all done by the participant or the host or whoever is on the program. Use of sound. So there's 2 sides to this one, audio that enhances the listening experience and audio that could be ambiguous or confusing. So here's something to try out for yourself when you think about creating something with IDV or for IDV. Listen to your content without watching it. Would it work as a podcast or a radio program? If so, it would likely work in IDV and you're on the right track. You also want to listen to your content and note any moments that could be improved for the listener. So if all you hear are the noises of what sounds like construction, but you have no idea what's happening, you'll need to include more description as part of the IDV process. Something else to keep in mind would be visuals. Are your visuals giving the sighted audience more information or a different story from the blind and partially sighted viewer? You need to keep that in mind. You want to keep the listener and the viewer on the same playing field. Vague language is a big one, and it's something that I've learned of in the last couple of years. I was hosting a media event for another one of our shows called Mindset Go, and we were having an event where we were inviting Paralympians and participants for the show at an event. And I used words like, over here, we're going to do wheelchair basketball. Over there, we're going to do wheelchair badminton. And my VP came up to me afterwards and said, about 1/3 of the people here today are blind or partially sighted. So when you say here or there, they have no idea where you're talking. It was just that, again, just that reminder that you need to think about those extra steps. So when you're using, when it comes to vague language, words like this, that, here, or there could be confusing. Also, as you can see, is very confusing as well for a blind or partially sighted person. It's not an offensive thing to say, they just have no idea what you're referencing. So a better option might be, I'm going to move 3 steps to my left, or I'm placing the hammer on the table next to my right hand. Language like that would work better. So be mindful of scripting that works for audio only, and you want to be inclusive of the listener. Over description. You go under description and then you've got the over description. You want to focus on relevant visuals to understand the content. There's no need to describe every detail. It's about finding a balance of how much to describe. So a facial expression is important, but perhaps the entire layout of a room where only the couch and the lamp are on a side table are pertinent to the story might not be. So focus on those important things like, you know, he walked into the room and put a gun down on the table. That's probably going to be part of the story, but maybe a painting that's hung on the wall, if it's just background, isn't going to be as important. Throughout any type of production, whether it be a promo, a documentary, scripted series, you can make choices to serve the blind or partially sighted audience. And many of these slight adjustments to the production make a huge difference for the audience. Next slide, please. Thank you. So next steps, familiarize yourself with description or accessibility best practices, and I'll get to that a little bit more detail in a second on that. One option to achieve an IDV production could be to partner with CBC or AMI directly. AMI is always looking for new productions, and we may be able to provide some assistance and direction on a case-by-case basis if you're interested in IDV as part of your production. You can contact a media accessibility specialist at AMI. We've got a team of 3 of them that would be happy to help you out. I'll give you the email address. The catch-all email address for AMI is info@ami.ca. And if you were to send an email, someone in the marketing and communications department would get that email, and then we would direct it to the right person. So if you did have a question for one of our media accessibility specialists, we would get it to them. AMI also offers 2 documents. We have an integrated described video white paper and an integrated described video best practices document. And both of those expand more on what I've been talking about today. And they can be found at ami.ca/resources. Now we are going through a website relaunch, so that link may not work today, but it will be working by the middle of next week. And as always, you can visit ami.ca to learn more about AMI and what we do. Next slide, please. So I'm a little early. They've been reminding me to stay within the 20 minutes. I'm a little short of that, but that's okay. I'm sure that we're going to have at least a few questions that I can answer. As of right now, this is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've learned a little bit and kind of an introductory into IDV, and that you'll start thinking about IDV moving forward, whether it's a promo or original production or anything else. Sarah, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Greg. That was fantastic. Lots of information there about how to make your content accessible. So thank you. To start things off, I wanted to ask you something that others may be wondering, which is what are some common challenges that creators face when they try to make something accessible?
I think the biggest challenge is being overwhelmed and thinking that perhaps it's this huge thing. You know, you say, okay, well, I'm creating a project, whether it be a web series or a promo or a TV show, and you think, is it difficult? The answer is it's just your own mind. It's getting past that. Like I said, there's documents that AMI has got at your disposal. There's also the folks that'll explain it to you. I know when I started at AMI at the beginning, I was very overwhelmed as a sighted person, just thinking about, okay, now I'm representing this company, but it's just asking those questions. That we're here to help. I know that Sarah and your team, I'm sure at CBC are there to help as well when it comes to those types of things. I think it's just really a mindset and thinking, okay, I want to make sure that my programming is the most inclusive that it can be, and here's how I want to do it. And once you get into that mindset and start moving forward and have those support documents, it becomes really easy, and honestly, it becomes second nature.
Yeah, I think it's always good to incorporate accessibility into your thinking at the outset of a project. It's easier, it's more cost effective, and it just makes it better for everybody. So I think you're right. It's a change in thinking and a change in mindset. Thank you. This next question is an important one around seeking guidance from and engaging with persons with disabilities. Does AMI consult with anyone in the blind and partially sighted community for feedback or input into the integrated described video process?
Yes, we absolutely do. Not only do we have members of the blind and partially sighted community that work at AMI across the country, but we also have a research panel. And we have about 1,100 members of the research panel, and they're all from the blind and partially sighted community across Canada. And they're contacted at least a couple of times a year. We provide surveys to them. We do email Q&As. We also do the Q&As over the phone. We also bring people into Toronto. Now, before COVID, we were bringing people into Toronto, and we would send them TV show pitches and TV show ideas and actually raw footage of programs to members of this research panel to say, what do you think? Are we on the right track? What could we be doing better? So it's this we're constantly communicating with the community to find out what it is that they really want. And it also gives you the answers that you don't expect. Like, for every show that we make that we think is going to be useful, someone else might come in and say, I'm not really interested in that. I want to be able to watch a show like Survivor. Can you guys make your own version of Survivor? So it's important, we can't always do those types of things, but we're constantly communicating with them, because without them, I mean, we're going off and not knowing what people want. So it's really important to ask them what they want and then to provide that.
That's great. That's excellent. This next question, this is a good one given that it's such a new technique, but does AMI offer any kind of in-house training for others who want to learn how to do IDV?
We don't offer in-house training, like having people come in. What often will happen is, like at the Real Abilities Festival, which is a film festival in Toronto, we'll offer up sessions where people can actually attend and learn. Now, that said, if you email info@ami.ca and you want to get some feedback from someone on the media accessibility specialist team, they will absolutely. I can't promise they'll do a one-on-one with you, but I can imagine that they will walk you through any questions that you have, and they'll work with you with any of the documents that I mentioned.
Great, excellent. Here is a good practical question from someone seeking some examples. What AMI television shows feature IDV, and which ones feature described video?
We have a great partnership with CBC. So any of the CBC programming, so Murdoch Mysteries has described video, Frankie Drake Mysteries has described video. We've also picked up the first 2 seasons of Coroner. Love that show. Those will be in described video as well. And then the in-house programs, we have a show called AMI, the shows that I'm going to talk about with integrated described video. So Eyes for the Job, Employable Me, which is about job seekers across the country trying to find jobs. They may be blind, they may be wheelchair users, they may have a neurological condition. They're all looking for jobs. That is in integrated described video. We also have a weekly news magazine program called AMI This Week, and where we have bureau reporters from across the country. So we've got a bureau reporter in Vancouver, one in Edmonton, one in Ottawa, one in Toronto, and one in Halifax, and one in Montreal. They're all blind or partially sighted, and they go out into the community and talk about the things that are going on in the community that might be of interest, either to the blind or partially sighted community or the sighted community. So they may be at an art gallery and describing some of the touch options that are available with regard to the art, or they might just be going to a camp that's being run by the CNIB. So AMI This Week, you can definitely check out as well. And then I mentioned some of the documentaries that we have. One stream is called Our Community, where we spotlight people and the organizations in the community that work with Canadians of all abilities. And then we also have original standalone documentaries as well. So a lot of internal productions that have integrated described video in them.
That's great. And this is sort of connected to that. Integrated described video, it's not necessarily suited to all types of programs, but I guess what type of programs work well with IDV, and maybe which type might not work so well?
Sure. So what I neglected to say, if you want to check out any of those shows that I was just talking about with integrated described video, you can go to ami.ca and click on shows, and you can stream those there. Sorry, we don't have a license to broadcast Murdoch Mysteries, so you can't stream that there, but you can go to CBC Gem for that anyway. Sorry. So sorry, Sarah, what was your, oh, right.
Yeah.
So genre that fits better. We're finding that lifestyle and documentaries are kind of the ones that just naturally fit within that bubble. I do believe that if we had a larger production budget, we would probably expand and try with scripted programming. But right now, it's the lifestyle and documentary streams that we follow that we're doing the IDV with as well. Another thing that I wanted to mention with regard to programming, because we talked about more long form half-hour shows, is we also have simple how-tos. So if you're blind or partially sighted, or somebody, whether you're coming into the community yourself, because it's happening all the time with or somebody that's coming into the community, either because of issues with eyesight or maybe they're getting older. We have how-to videos like, here are some life hacks for the kitchen, because not all appliances are fully accessible for people. So we've also just produced some videos that say, hey, listen, you're coming into this community for the first time. We've got you. Here's some things that you can do to make your life a little bit easier.
Great. And are there any examples of any scripted drama programs with IDV, or is that something that hasn't been attempted?
The only thing that we've done with regard to IDV, it's anything that we've done hasn't been scripted. And the only thing that I can think of that we do that's kind of a tweak on that, it would be live described video. And we had a license with the Toronto Blue Jays where there was one more broadcaster who was describing extra things in the broadcast, but we've never done it with scripted. The budgets are a little high for scripted as opposed to unscripted programming.
Right. Another question that just came in is IDV done anywhere outside of Canada, or is it currently within Canada only at this time?
When it comes to integrated described video, AMI is the only one here in Canada at this point, but there are other, we're partnering with these independent producers who are then learning, and then they're able to spread the word as well. And I understand that Humber and Ryerson may be introducing some kind of education into learning how to do that as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Here is another question. Do you have any advice for emerging producers who want to pitch to AMI?
Yeah, pitch to us. Absolutely pitch to us. The email is submissions@ami.ca, and you can send your pitch there. There will be documentation to fill out, but we're always looking for new content. We're looking for new content, year round. And whether you're a new production company or a new producer, or you've been in the business for a while and you want to get into IDV, we're happy to walk through veterans and newbies along the way. It's all about educating, and we're happy to educate and help you out any way that we can.
Great, thank you. Here's another question. When we talk about making TV accessible to people with vision loss, because TV is such a visual medium, some people wonder, do blind and partially sighted people tune into television as much as sighted people?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes, they absolutely do. And this is something that I've learned over the last couple of years at AMI, is that not only will they consume it, but they will sit in a room with sighted family members because they want to be part of that conversation, even though there might not be described video or integrated described video. So they're actually missing out on part of the storytelling, but they want to be part of that conversation. They want to be in the room. And there's also the case of folks watching with their family and then going and checking it again afterwards. And that's the whole idea behind the IDV, is that inclusiveness. So if you can have that IDV as part of your programming, then you've got everybody in that same room together enjoying it. And to be honest with you, whether when a program has IDV, I don't notice it. It just enhances the storytelling for me as a sighted person. So why not have it?
Right. I'm wondering, what is next for AMI? Are there any other techniques that you're currently working on pioneering to make content accessible? Anything exciting coming up?
Yeah, we're always looking for things. Like I said, we're relaunching our website, so that'll be happening officially next Tuesday, so everybody can check that out. I think what the big thing is right now is the technology catching up. So we send out our this is a little bit off topic, but it's basically the technology that we're always seeking out. So we also have closed captioning for the deaf or hard of hearing community. And right now we send it out and it's automatically done by a computer. The computers aren't perfect. So part of my job is to make sure that that's closed captioning is in line and actually matches up with what the person is saying. I've seen some really interesting translation in some of the automatic closed captioning. So it's us, keeping ahead and breaking new ground, but also making sure that we're up to speed with the latest in technology. I guess that's a
great.
challenge for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's our time for today. We'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Greg, for chatting with us today about this very important topic of accessibility. Thank you to everyone who joined us for this final session of One Stop Business Workshop. We hope you have found this session and any previous sessions you attended interesting and useful. An email will be sent to you later on today with a link to the video of today's presentation and some additional resources. And you can also find links to all of the previous sessions in the One Stop series on CBC's Business and Rights website. Also, for those of you who are interested in connecting with others who registered for these sessions, we invite you to join the One Stop Business Workshop networking group on Facebook. So thanks again to everybody for tuning in. Thank you to CBC and CAVCO and CMPA. Thank you to all of our presenters, moderators, and all of those involved in this series who worked so hard to bring it to life. It's been fantastic and so much fun to be part of. And with that, we will sign off. Thanks again, everyone, and have a fantastic weekend.